Okay. Okay, Maya, you want to start, Amma?
Okay, Hari Om. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. समस्त जन कल्याणे निरन्तं करुणामयं नमामि चिन्मयं देवं सद्गुरुं ब्रह्म विद्वरम् ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहे तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहे ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः यतः सर्वाणि भूतानि प्रतिभान्ति स्थितानि च यत्रैवोपशमं यान्ति तस्मै सत्यात्मने नमः ज्ञाता ज्ञानं तथा ज्ञेयं द्रष्टा दर्शनद्रश्ययभूः कर्ता हेतुः क्रिया यस्मत् तस्मै ज्ञात्यात्मने नमः स्फुरन्ति सीकरा यस्माद् आनन्दश्याम्बरे बनौ सर्वेषां जीवनं तस्मै ब्रह्मानन्दात्मने नमः दिवि भूमौ तथाकाशे बहिरन्तश्च मे विभुः यो विभात्यवभासात्मा तस्मै सर्वात्मने नमः
Very good. All righty.
Okay, Hari Om, everybody. The summary of Yoga Vasishta section 62 to 65. And 62, let me see, I got the right one. Okay, 62, the vision that leads to the liberation. Sri Vasishta continue, O Rama, divide in atom into a 1 million millionth of part. Even in the minute of fragments, there are thousands of worlds. They are all worlds within worlds. All possible creations in the past, present, and future are sustained by pure consciousness. The world is controlled by divine will, but divinity and his creations are similar to his will. All this is Brahman. The same Brahman is described as a great existence, but in fact it is only Brahman assuming different aspect of his glory. It is the illusion of mind that shows difference between the world and Brahman. The wise man should not stop his efforts to attain the goal of his life and rely on destiny. Destiny is nothing but Jiva's past karmas. A yogi controls his destiny with his self efforts by commanding divine will to lead his efforts to success of self realization. Section 3 and 4. Brahman appears as the world process through Maya. Sri Vasishta continue, through the power of Maya, Brahman is capable of assuming all forms everywhere in all times. Brahman is all pervading, a sense of all that exists. Yesterday we read in Swetaras Upanishad, chapter 6, sloka 2, it says, his great potential power, he is the treasure house of all attributes and virtues. He is omniscient, omnipresent, presiding over all actions, giver of all results, compassionate, gracious, and forgiving. He is the award of all love and joy, which sustains creation. When seen through institutional vision, this entire world is Brahman. With the effect of Maya, Brahman becomes Jiva. There is no difference between Brahman and power of Brahman that manifests through Maya. Limited by ignorance, pure consciousness assumes the role of individual soul. All the developments in one's life are results of his own will. Jiva is driven by ego, continues in cycle of birth and death. Section 65. Consciousness is the reality behind the mind and objects. Sri Vashishta continued to, O Rama, through the veil of ignorance, the illusory mind arises from Brahman and it projects the word process. When mind is transcended, all the multiplicities of the world, such as subject, action, and word process, all disappear. Brahman alone remains. This world is neither existence nor non-existent. It is an expression of the illusory of Chitta. This limitless Brahman becomes Chitta to Jeev, to ego sense, to mind. Jiva develops an attachment that causes bondage. There is no difference between self and individual soul. All this is pure consciousness. The human body made of karmas, that is a state of mind. And mind is nothing but the self who is all pervading and eternal. The implication of the vision of the leads to the liberation is in short is refers to the specific understanding or way of perceiving reality that can lead to freedom from suffering and attachment. In various spiritual and philosophical traditions, this vision involves recognizing the interconnectedness of all things, seeing the underlying unity in all beings, and understanding the illusory nature of the self who is all pervading and eternal. On Saturday at Chinmay Niketan, Swami Prakashananda ji explained about Nabda Bhakti and Tulasi Ramayana. Ramchandra ji is telling Shabari Nabda Bhakti, but I'll say only the seventh step. They say seventh step is to perceive the word as a God himself and regard the saint higher than the Lord. Okay, sorry, I have another page that I have to go. Okay. The introduction of book 2. Swami Jyotimanand ji explains in the Balakand section of Ramayana, Sri Rama was given spiritual instructions by sage Vashishta. The Yoga Vashishta is known by several different names, but whatever name you call it, it is the earliest work of Yoga Vedanta. In Yoga Vashishta, every kind of explanation is given in its presentation. Stories within stories enhance the vision of world within the words and of the extremely complex world of mind. The Vairagya Prakarana says Vasishta asked Sri Rama to express his reason for his depressed state of mind. Sri Rama elaborated upon the transiency and a senselessness of all objects of the world. In the first section of Mumukshu Parikarana, Sri Rama told says Vasishta about the most valued aspect of life are illusory. The Brahman is the creator as significant and illusory. This is the first fundamental requirement of the path of wisdom that leads to self-realization. In the second section of Moksha Parikrama has shown that certain qualifications are necessary for an aspirant to move on the path of self-realization. Says the Vashishta, elaborated on the four most important qualifications, those of serenity, contentment, spiritual inquiry, and good association. Also, he, he also elaborated that aspirant should not rely on destiny rather on his own self efforts. In Utpatti Prakarans, says Vasishtha has shown how the world has evolved from and is sustained by the absolute through the limitations of mind. And since the world is merely a projection of the mind conditioned by ignorance, when ignorance is overcome by intuitive wisdom, mind rediscovers its unity with the cosmic mind, and individual merges into absolute. After completing the Utpatti Prakaran, Sage goes into Sthiti Prakaran, which deals with the sustaining reality of the self, and then into Upashama Prakarana. The topic deals with the quiescence, quiescence of the mind. After this, we'll continue to the last section, Nirvana Prakarana, the topic dealing with the final stage of Sri Rama, instructions from says Vasishta and his ultimate enlightenment. Hari Om.
Very nice. Very good.
Thank you.
So you can see how systematically Maya is doing the reflection. So she was able to bring in what we studied yesterday in Shvetashwara Upanishad, and also what she learnt in the Gnana Yagna last weekend. And so this way, this is the only way that we constant study of scripture after scripture, that we continue through the Mananam and Nididhyasanam. And so we should continue. And the more and more hours that we spend in this contemplation, withdrawing our mind, more our mind gets quiescent. So. Okay, so since Swamiji has given about three verses of prayer, we will go ahead and chant that together. So if you want to silence yourself and want to chant with me, the first one, you are welcome to do that. ब्रह्मानन्दं परमसुखदं केवलं ज्ञानमूर्तिं द्वन्द्वातीतं गगनसदृशं तत्त्वमस्यादिलक्ष्यम् एकं नित्यं विमलमचलं सर्वदी साक्षिभूतं भावातीतं त्रिगुणरहितं Shri Vashishtam Nathasmaha. So this is a standard, what do you call, verse in prayer for the Guru as Brahman, but here the last three words have been changed to specifically for Vasishta Rishi by the Swamiji. So I'm going to just read the meaning. Adoration to Brahman, the giver of supreme bliss, the embodiment of pure consciousness, beyond the pairs of opposites, vast like the ether, knowable by meditation upon the great utterance that thou art. Adorations to sage Vashishta, who is indeed Brahman, one without a second, eternal, pure, immutable, the witnessing self, abiding in all beings, beyond the changes and modifications of nature. So, very beautiful. So I want to chant the couple of mantras that Swamiji has selected from this Utpatti Praparana. He says, Icha matra vidyaha tannashe moksha uchyate sa cha sankalpa matrena siddho bhavati raghava. He says, O Rama, ignorance consists in desires for the external objects of the world, and liberation consists in desirelessness. If you stop thinking of the objects of the world, you will surely become desireless and enjoy the bliss of liberation. So you can see how beautifully it keep on hammering to us that we should become desireless. So when you desireless means thoughtless. Once you become thoughtless, our mind is absorbed in our own Atman. मनगापि मनोव्योम्नि वासनारजनीक्षये कालिमा तनुतामेति चिदादित्यमहोदयात्. He says, when the knowledge of the self shines like the sun in the ether of the heart, the night of ignorance disappears and the dark veil of ignorance is removed. So we all know how when you go to a room, we put on the light, then where is the darkness? Light removes the darkness. Same way, once we get the knowledge of the self, all our ignorance that I am this individual and this world is different from me, this different world gives me happiness or sorrow, all this will disappear. Okay, Maya, you want to continue, Amma? Read the first three paragraphs.
Okay.
Section 66.
Okay. The mystic art of destroying the mind. Sri Vashishta continue, O Rama, from one lamp, numerous lamps are kindled. In the same way, from one absolute, numerous souls come into existence. The multiplicity of souls is due to illusions alone. When a person gives up the illusory concept of duality in the depth of his heart and reflects upon the nature of the self devoid of name and form, he becomes the self. Then he does not grieve anymore. Jiva is nothing but a chitta, mind is stuff. The moment the mind is transcended, the world dissolves. There is no need to cover the world with leather. A yogi puts on leather shoes, so for him, all paths are covered with leather. In other words, the moment a yogi attains intuitive vision, he beholds Brahman everywhere.
You want to comment?
Yes, it's just telling the same thing, It's is just like one lamp you can light so many lamps. Is just and kindles the other lamps in the same way. From Brahman, absolute, the other jivas and souls come out in existence, and then he gives the when the duality finishes, when the illusory concept of duality goes away from your heart, you become one with the self. You become self. And then he goes that jiva is nothing but the chitta. The moment mind transcended it, world dissolves. It's again same thing. Once your mind is settled and say you are the Brahman, then everything disappears.
Right. Yeah. The mind is nothing but a stream of thoughts. When the thoughts stop, the mind is gone. So our whole sadhana is that if you can stop thinking, easier said than done. So, anybody want to add comment? Okay. Looks like John Siamma has not been coming. Nag, you want to read, sir?
Hari Om, sir.
Hari Om.
Due to the wanderings of the chitta, the illusory awareness of birth, growth, boyhood, youth, old age, death, heaven and hell arises. All of these are nothing but expressions of the wild dance of the chitta. Just as the object of the world seems to be dancing and the tree seems to be swaying before a person who is intoxicated with liquor, so too the world process seems to occur due to the intoxication of ignorance. Impress your mind with the fact that there is nothing in this world other than pure consciousness. Thus impressed, your mind will attain a state of quiescence, like a fire that is no longer fed by fuel. When a person discovers his unity with the Supreme Self, he becomes quiescent, whether he engages himself in action or sits quietly in deep meditation.
Yeah.
So here he emphasizes again what he said earlier, that the whole world is nothing but my imagination. So if I realize the world is nothing but my mind, whatever my mind thinks, then everything is clear. But like you said, it is easier said than done. And also one good example I see in the last paragraph, he says, the mind will be quiet like a fire that is no longer fed by fuel. But so what it implies is, if I put the fuel, the fire will catch us again. So even if we think we don't no longer going after the worldly things, that the moment we start thinking about something else, we again get dragged into that. So we should be always very steady in what we are thinking. If you are going away from worldly pleasure, we should not even try even once. That is what it implies. Anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the thing. Even we reach the age of 90, we still want to go for parties, or we want to keep on reading the world news for hours. And so the mind will continue to go out unless we say, hey, whether I am there or not, the world goes on, it doesn't really matter. And so I want to withdraw from everything. So if you can turn off, of course, turning off the television and radio is easy, but turning off the mind is the big sadhana that we have to keep on practicing. So he becomes quiescent, whether he engages himself in action or sits quietly in deep meditation. That is the quality of a realized master. Okay. You might say, oh, he never meditates, you might say, but he's already in that state of samadhi, nitya samadhi. And here his body and mind are working in the world, but he knows that he is that pure Brahman. So, okay. And Padmaja here. No. Rakesh ji, you want to continue, sir?
Hari Om.
Hari Om. You can finish
All
the
that is
chapter.
perceived by the mind is essentially mental. The mind is essentially pure consciousness. The word process is like a snake projected on the rope of pure consciousness. Wisdom is the only potent remedy for curing the disease of word process. It is the illusion of the mind that gives rise to the word process, and mental illusion cannot be destroyed by physical exertion. For spiritual realization, there is no need for mental tension or physical exertion. All that is needed is to realize that there is nothing to be desired in this world. When the subtle desires begin to melt, in the light of wisdom, the true nature of the self is revealed, like the sun appearing from behind the shifting clouds. If a person were to renounce whatever the mind desires, then immediately, through the force of knowledge, he would attain release in this world. Great men are ready to renounce even their lives as if they considered their life nothing but a straw in the face of their ideals. In yoga, all you have to renounce is desire, which is illusory and empty anyway. Whatever objects you desire, renounce it in your mind. Having mentally renounced your attachments, continue to perform your duties, keeping the mind balanced in gain and loss. Remember that you are the eternal self and not this perishable body. You continue the same thought, like is all illusion completely, and giving example, a snake projected on the rope, but is of pure consciousness. But because of the illusion, we are lost and we just don't look that once we get rid of all illusions, we can realize the Atman, Brahman, because this was said, this all it is. But because of our so many birds coming back and getting attached to the this body and the world, and this just keep on and on and on. So unless we get the wisdom, because he said the physical and nothing we can do, you can't think about, but unless you get the wisdom is the only way you can get that clearance and you can get to the stage of liberation and you get realize the Brahman. So he said, what objects you desire, renounce it, because and what is happening, we're getting more and more, and unless we get rid of the dvandvas, opposites, and also the vasanas, we will never get it because we get more involved into it, we get more entangled into it. So once we get to stage and we say no, nothing doing, like Aru said, avoid a lot of things, because sometimes you don't realize it. Oh, I'm just going for a few minutes, show my face, but that really entangles you. You tend more people and no more things come on. So unless you reach the goal and you want to get that liberation, you have to work hard and just keep working on it. Hari Om.
Good, beautiful, very nice. So it looks like you're coming from your experience. So, so the thing is, it's a gradual process, but more intense we practice, the faster will be the result. So, the world continues to goes on moving. But it is for us to say, hey, enough is enough, that I want to withdraw from this world process and all my thoughts of the world. And once mind gets quiet, then you are able to attain to the state of samadhi. So the practice is called meditation. The final goal reached is the samadhi. So we'll continue on to see the next section, 67. Ratnama, you want to continue, Ma?
The nature of the soul. Sri Rama asked, O sage, how does the jiva, individual soul, identify with the mind, arise from the divine self? How is the jiva related to the absolute self? Sri Vashishta explained, Brahman, the absolute, has infinite power. By the force of Maya, cosmic illusion, Brahman is capable of manifesting itself through the numerous individual souls. So, from the essential point of view, every soul is Brahman, and the world is but an illusory modification of the absolute. When this identity is discovered through intuitional realization, the question of the relationship between the soul and the divine self has no basis. Pressured by the sankalpas, egoistic desires, and the thoughts of the past, an individual soul continues to pass through numerous embodiments. It continues to experience birth, death, and the varied conditions of life from one birth to another. So here, Sri Rama asked Vashishta, how does this jiva, identifies with the mind and then arise from the divine self? How this jiva is related to the absolute self? That is Rama asked. Then Vashishta explained, the Brahman has got infinite power. By the force of that Maya, he is capable of manifesting through numerous individuals, so many people, so many things. He is everywhere. He is everything. Brahman is everything and everywhere. So from the essential point of view, every soul is Brahman. But the world is illusory, and modification of the absolute. If one realizes that this world is illusory, and realize that Brahman is the absolute. He has pervaded everything, and it's because of him the world exists. And if one realizes that one, and then also, he says our desires are the ones that makes us think and be involved in the world because of the desire. If one gives up the desires, then he will realize the absolute Brahman. Hari Om.
Yeah. So, it's beautifully said that Jiva is Brahman, Tattvama Asi. So, the same thing is continue to be repeated. And only because of the sankalpas that we continue to think we are separate. And once the sankalpas are dissolved, then we become one with that Brahman, or realize our oneness with Brahman. Okay. Sarvesh ji, you want to read, sir?
Hari Om.
Hari Om, sir.
Just as wind is nothing but air in motion, so the jiva is nothing but consciousness mingled with the illusion of vibration. It is consciousness in the state of motion that brings about the existence of the jiva and its related developments such as karma, action, destiny, fate, and the world of cause and effect relationship. Some souls, the vibratory states of consciousness are so involved in karma, causation, and destiny that it will take a long time for them to attain release from the fetters of bondage. Some will attain enlightenment in a few births. Some will take 1,000 births, while some will attain illumination, even in this very birth. Consciousness becomes identified with both ignorance and the effects of ignorance. It becomes identified with the chitta and is therefore called the incarnating soul. It is identified with the mind and thus becomes the experiencer of pleasure and pain. It becomes identified with the pranas, vital forces, and is called a living being. It is identified with the astral body, so it experiences heaven and hell. It becomes identified with the physical body and is thus related to its parents and other relatives and friends. But from the absolute point of view, the soul is essentially Brahman, the absolute without mind, without the pranas, without the body, and without all limitations.
Very nice.
So he is defining Brahman in the very last paragraph for that pure Brahman is without the mind or the pranas of the body. And also previously he was referring to chitta as associated with the mind, and it becomes identified with prana and called a living being. And so he defines jiva as nothing but the consciousness mingled with illusion. That means the consciousness is illumining the jiva. Through which through jiva attains all this karma, action, destiny, fate, and then it is carried on as vasanas to the life after life.
Right. Very good. So I like that first paragraph you read where the jiva is compared to the wind and the consciousness is compared to the air. So the consciousness in movement is the jiva or the mind. And if the movement stops, then it becomes one with the Brahman, the consciousness.
Yeah,
So,
that's a very good example.
right.
Wind and the air.
Right, right.
Right.
And so if we continue to be very active, more rajasic and tamasic, and so we continue to dwell in this world. But if we continue to change to sattva, the sattva leads to detachment, like satsangatve, nisangatve, nirmohatve, nischaratvatvam. So continuously we have to keep on doing it. So the last paragraph is beautiful, that it tells about our consciousness associated with the five koshas. Then we call ourselves the various things. And by detachment from the five koshas, we are just nothing but that pure, absolute Brahman.
Brahman.
Yeah. So beautiful. Okay, Shobhanamma here today. No. And Sudhirji here today. No. Okay, Uma Shankar, you want to read, Amma?
Yeah. The soul experiences this world process as a result of the force of illusion operating through the limited mind. King Lavana, the ruler of Mathura, experienced the life of a Chandala outcast for what seemed to be a long time, while he was really in a state of trance that lasted only a few hours. Just as waves arises in the ocean, so too do the experience of the world. Even the very concepts of time and space arise from the mind. At times, they ripple or whipped into mighty waves by the mind. In the same way, the tiny vibrations of the mind can be whipped into gigantic proportions by the wind of all illusion. In
Go
the
ahead,
ocean
continue.
of Brahman, the souls are likely tiny whirlpools. These in turn give rise to the bubbles of numerous worlds. It is a Brahman who assumes the role of a jiva. But when an individual acquires the knowledge of Brahman, the Brahman in him tears the veil of illusion and merges in its own real nature.
Yeah. Comment? So, with the example of the King Lavana, the story goes that he was dreaming, but he thought a magician came to his kingdom and he asked him to ride the horse, and the horse took him away to the forest, and then he got lost, and then he became so hungry, and that he's ended up in a Chandala's place, and there he ended up having so many children, and then the what do you call a drought happened, and then all the children were all hungry, and they were all husband, wife, and all that were completely asking him for food, and then he gets disgusted and he leaves the whole place, and then suddenly he wakes up and realizes, oh, I spent so much time having children and all these things, all these years happened, and what happened? But everything happened in just a dream. So, like that. So, everything is in the mind alone. So, in the previous one, he talked about comparing the mind to the wind. Here it's comparing to the waves in the second paragraph. So, and then as the various worlds are like whirlpools in which various jivas are. So, is Veernaji here today? No. Vijay. Who is the Zoom user? Oh, Reddy Garu. Okay. And Vishwanathan is not here. Akilamma.
Hari Om Vijay.
Hari Om.
The pure consciousness, Brahman, manifests as Jiva by reflecting in ignorance. It manifests as mind by becoming identified with thoughts and desires, as intellect by performing the function of reasoning and ascertaining, as Chitta by the act of retention and recollection, and as ego by developing the sense of mindness. In fact, this pure consciousness is the ultimate analysis of all that goes to compose a human personality. It is the self that creates the illusion of waking state by operating through the senses and contacting external objects. It is the self that manifests the dream state by associating with the ego and its subtle desires and moving in region of throat. Again, it is the same self that withdraws the projection of the world and sustains the world process in a seed state while enjoying deep sleep. When enlightened, the spirit in man rises beyond the three states and discovers its true identity with the Absolute. This figuratively described as Turiya, the fourth state. All this arises in Brahman. All this is sustained by Brahman. And all this is dissolved in Brahman. In fact, this world does not exist. Therefore, there is no relationship between Brahman and the world. Just as garlands of pearl may seem to appear in the sky before the eyes of a person who has defective vision, so too the world process is experienced due to the ignorance that veils the vision of the self. This is what we have been learning in all our Upanishads and everything, how the pure consciousness or Brahman manifests in the jiva, it manifests in everything that we see in the mind. The same jiva manifests in different things and it comes as a different, the source is Brahman, but the final result that we see in this world, it comes either as mind, it comes as desires, it comes as thoughts, it comes as intellects, as functioning, as different things, as ego. And but everything finally is just pure Brahman.
Right.
And it is that self. In the waking state, we see that it is operating through the senses, and then during our sleeping state, it withdraws and projects itself in the dream, and it sustains the world process in the seed. And then again, when we wake up, in the deep sleep state, it realizes its true identity, and we call it the Turiya state. And then all these arises in Brahman, it dissolves in Brahman, and it is only sustained by Brahman. So it is Brahman all the way. There is nothing other than Brahman. This world is not true. It is just Brahman alone that is true. Just as you always say, Brahma Satya, Jagan, Brahmas.
Satyam Jagan Mityam.
Yeah, just say it. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya.
Good. Yeah. So just like in all the gold ornaments, if you remove the gold, there are no ornaments, period. So in the first paragraph is beautifully talking about the Brahman with ignorance is the Jiva. And he talks about that Jiva has this antakarana, which is the ahankara, chitta, mana, and buddhi. So buddhi is not described in this paragraph, but the four aspects of the antakarana of the Jiva is beautifully described. And in the next paragraph, he talks about the four states of waking, dream, and the three states: waking, dream, and deep sleep states that we all go through. But only a sadhaka, right, going beyond the three states, he attains to the fourth Karturiya. And all this is nothing but that Brahman alone. So we'll continue on, and Anjaneyulu sir, continue sir.
Hari Om, Raghuji.
Hari Om sir.
One might say that the vast sky supports the growth of a tree since it doesn't offer any obstruction to the latter's expansion. In the same way, Brahman can be called the support of the world process since it is untouched by the world, while at the same time it allows the illusory tree of the world process to grow and to expand. A mighty tree exists in a seed, but when the seed is roasted, it can no longer bring forth the tree. In the same way, the world tree exists in a subtle seed state of the chitta, in the chitta, but when the light of wisdom roasts the seed of the world process, the soul attains release. It can no longer enter into the illusion of the world process. O Rama, Sri Rama said, O divine sage, it is great wonder in this world, though non-existent appears to exist. Though petty and limited, it appears to an expansive concrete reality. So the beautiful paras. We have studied in 15th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Urdhva Moola Madashakam. So Brahman is the substratum for the whole world, the physical world. But at the same time, when the knowledge dawns upon it, we feel that it is a non-existent, and only Ajatavada of Mandukya Karika supports that only Brahman alone exists. Ekameva Advitiyam. When this knowledge dawns upon the seed, the seeds of the ignorance is roasted like a Varjita bija, and once get enlightened and become Jivan Mukta during the life process itself. So the great truth is given that how one becomes a Jivan Mukta by the roasting of the ignorance during the life process. Hari Om.
Good, very nice, very nice. Thank you. So now Lord Rama is asking about this world. Though non-existent, appears to exist. Though pretty and limited, it appears to be expansive, concrete reality. So it's not really a question, but he's making a statement. Let us see what Vashishta says. Okay, Ashwin, you want to continue, sir?
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Sri Vashishta continued. The world asserts itself in the heart of the ignorant, much as a non-existent ghost terrifies a child by assuming a terrible form before his eyes. The individual soul is essentially pure and true, but due to ignorance, it seems to be different from Brahman. Led by the illusions of the mind, the soul is caught in the dreams of the world process. Burdened by the complexes of the mind, the soul is unable to discover its essential nature. But led by self-effort through numerous embodiments, it becomes inclined towards spiritual inquiry into who am I. As a result, it recalls its essential nature as Brahman.
Comment?
Yeah, the same point is being emphasized again, which is this world appears as an illusion. It asserts itself in the heart of the ignorant. And it's an example given like a ghost, right? A small child gets so much terrified just thinking about a ghost. So similarly, the world is nothing but it's just our ignorance. And in order for us to discover our essential nature, we need to put in the self-effort, which will lead to spiritual inquiry, self-effort, to basically develop that vairagya, that dispassion, desireless, thoughtlessness, and then eventually we'll go towards that spiritual inquiry. Who am I? Right? Who am I? And then that will lead us to gradual realization.
Right. Beautiful. Thank you. So, as long as we are identified with the body and the mind, the world continues to exist. And when we turn inwards and detach ourselves from the identification with the BMI, then the world disappears. So, our whole sadhana is that the complex mind should be reduced to a simple, quiet mind. So we'll continue on. Nuligar is not here. Dinesh ji, you want to read the next two paragraphs, sir?
Hari Om, Raghuji.
Hari Om, sir.
But in the absence of the intuitive knowledge of I am, the soul evolves the illusory awareness of the ego. In leaning upon this illusory ego, it desires to taste, and there arises the organ of taste. It desires to see, and there manifests the organ of sight. Similarly, the other senses are evolved out of this illusory ego sense. Gradually, it becomes identified with the body, and then seems to completely dependent on the body. In fact, the physical body and its realities are projections of the astral body constituted of the mind. The revelation of the fact that I am the subtle body and not the physical body is of immense importance. But it is still more wondrous to discover that even the subtle body is nothing but mist that must dissolve in the unbounded sky of Brahman. So basically what we have been studying here is the senses. If we have the senses, we continue to depend upon our senses, it will be difficult to realize the Brahman. And that's where the duality exists. Everything that we see, it's within the Brahman. And so I guess that's the purpose of this this study, Yoga Vashishta, to overcome that duality and become one with everything. Hari Om.
Yeah. So the grossest of our senses is said to be the smell, which is related to the earth element. And then comes the subtler is the taste. Subtler than that is the sight. Subtler than that is the touch. And subtler than that is the sound. And so like that, gradually our ego identified with these things and continue to evolve and becomes a human being with all the five senses and the antakarana. So gradually, the whole process we have to reverse it and detach ourselves from this identification. So like in what you call that Vivek Sudamani, Shankaracharya beautifully says, an ignorant man thinks he is the body, but intelligent man thinks he is the jiva, that is the subtle body. But the wise man knows that he is the pure Atman. So that's what is being said here in the last paragraph beautifully. So very good. And Karpagam, you want to read, Amma?
The story of Karkati. Sri Vashishta said, "O Rama, listen to this delightful and enlightening story of Demoness Karkati. It abounds with insight into the mystic life that leads to self-realization. In the northern part of the Himalayas, there once lived a gigantic demoness named Karkati. She became well known by two names: Vishuchika, the needle-shaped affliction, and Anya Avadika, the remover of injustice. The former name refers to her unenlightened state, while the later name developed when she attained enlightenment. Presently, I will tell you how it came about the terrible demoness became an enlightened spirit. Karkati, the terrible demoness, used to range the Himalayan mountains. She was the very embodiment of terror and ugliness. She decked her gigantic body with garland of human skulls, and with sharp, piercing eyes, she continued to look for her prey. Her hunger was insatiable. Her greatest desire was to devour all living beings. Only this could satisfy her hunger. Maria.
Yeah. Want to comment?
It's going to tell the story of the Karkati, who's the
Right.
demoness who become enlightened soul.
Right. So you can see from section 68 to 83, all these are combined into one by the Swamiji, because that description of Karkati goes on into chapter after chapter, chapter after chapter. But Swamiji, as a kindness to us, has some put them everything together into a few pages for us. And as we read it, I feel that we should continue to look at the symbolism of that Jiva Karkati. So we have so much desire, so achieve so much we want to achieve in this world at the expense of other people. So that's how that she lived, that Karkati. And then it becomes, she becomes so much engrossed in how to achieve that, getting into human beings and suck their essence, the blood and all that. And we will see how the story goes. And then she gets disgusted with all her life, and then she becomes a realized soul. So it's a beautiful story. I don't want to elaborate on it. And Madhu Kukla is not. Mano Naidu, continue, Amma.
In order to acquire this power, she practiced intense austerity in an inaccessible part of the Himalayas. She sat in a meditative pose and stayed firm like a rock for a very long time. Days, weeks, fortnights, months, and even years passed by. After a long time, Brahma, the dispenser of the fruits of action for all living beings, presented himself before Karkati in order to bestow on her the fruits of her austerities. He told her that she could receive any boon she wanted from him. Karkati then asked the boon of becoming as small as the needle in order to elude the sight of people and thus to enter into their vitals, so to satisfy hunger. the Karkati is in the early stages, and her focus is only how can I get into these human beings and get them. So now she is asking Brahma to become a needle so that she can enter into without them noticing her, she can enter into their vitals to satisfy her hunger.
Yeah. So you can say how stupid we are, and we do all that effort and for little things, and really at the end we really don't know what really we really want, what we ask for. And she uh, said she thought that she becoming a tiny needle, she can enter into the people's vitals and suck all the blood that she wanted. But being a small needle, there's only so much that she can suck. And so, after all that tapas and after getting the boon, she gets disappointed with that thing. And so, you can say we should do tapas for achieving the supreme, not for any material goals of life. It's a beautiful story. So, and Manoj Shah is not here today. Maya, continue.
Okay, Hari Om. Brahma said, may you become Vishuktika, an affliction that causes one to feel like he is being pierced by needles. Escaping the notice of people, you will be able to enter into their vitals, and you will enjoy their flesh and blood to your heart's content. But you will be able to hurt only those beings who are lacking dharma, righteousness conduct. Those who are endowed with righteous conduct will nullify your influence and negate your presence by the recitations of the following mantra. Mantra is Om Reem Ram Rim Ram Vishnu Shaktaye Namaha. Om Har Har Naya Naya Pach Pach Maha Matha Matha Utsadhya Dure Karu Swaha Hemantam Gacha Jiva Saha Saha Chandramandalosi Swaha. Oh my God. Okay, adoration to the cosmic power of Lord Vishnu. O Shakti, you are the controller of all. This disease is a partial manifestation of your being. May you withdraw it into yourself. You are the very embodiment of Om. Just as rice is made soft, so to tender this disease, soft and vulnerable, churn it even like a curd and transfer it to another place or adopt any other method to derive it away. So, do I need to read more? I guess not. Okay.
Now let's speak.
So, I guess what boon she wanted, Brahmaji gave her to become, and then he also said that cause will not the people who are in dharma in righteous conduct. So and then of course just gave this mantra, and I guess that's all.
Good. Yeah. So you can see that how the worldliness affects those who have the what you call the asuric tendencies. But those with the daivi sampat, that this kind of worldly disease of the worldliness is not does not affect. And particularly in case if some kind of difficulties come, by praying to Bhagavan, even the afflictions will be released. So Brahmaji was very, very careful in giving the boon so that by her the sattvic or the people with Daivi Sampat will not be affected. So, okay. And Nag, you want to continue, sir?
Further, Brahma enjoined that while the physician repeats this mantra, the patient must strongly feel that the disease which has been afflicting him due to his past karma is now leaving his body. He must feel he is being nourished by the nectar that flows from the moon at the crown of his head. The patient should imagine that, struck by the hammer of this mantra, the demoness Karkati is leaving his body. She is running away to her abode in the Himalayas. Thus, Brahma, although he created the disease, has now also formed a powerful antidote for it. Since then, Karkati took the form of a simple needle. She entered into the bodies of others in the form of various diseases, such as plague and cholera, and continued to feed on the flesh and blood of living beings. But soon she discovered her folly, for with her tiny body she could not consume vast quantities of food. Her idea to devour the whole world became an idle dream. She repented for having practiced austerity only to bring about her own destruction. No comments.
Yeah. So first I thought that mantra is for the be chanted by the person who is sick, but it's interesting. It says the the physician will repeat the mantra, repeat this mantra, and the patient must strongly feel that the disease would be is leaving his body. So. I don't know if anybody is recommending that mantra when people are sick. I don't know if it's going to help, but praying to Bhagavan will definitely be helpful. So, very good. And Rakesh, you want to continue, sir?
Yes, sir. O Rama, it is one sankalpa, mental will, that leads him to great heights of spiritual consciousness, or degrades him to the lowest depths of humiliation. Mean minded people practice austerity for petty objects. Karkati remembered her previous body and she repented bitterly for having lost it due to her ignorance. She found herself drowned even in a small pit of mud and fully satiated with only a small drop of blood. It was disgusting for her to enter into the vitals of numerous bodies only to dwell within their blood and flesh. She decided again to take recourse to austerity to correct her folly. Karakati is Maya, cosmic illusion.
Let
In
us wait
this,
here. You want to just comment on that one first?
yeah, this continuation that they're talking about, what she got because she thought she made a mistake because when she asked that boon, she thought she'll be easier to get all that, but she got so small size of needle instead of big, humongous Rakshasa, so she don't need that much to eat, and that she never get satisfied. So she thought maybe I need to go back and do some more austerity and talk Brahma, make him happy and let him give me another boon, and I want to go back onto the same where I was before because I was much happier that time.
Right. Yeah. So, but fortunately, as she does more tapas, she becomes more sattvic, and she becomes what you call Jivan Mukta. So I stopped here because the next three paragraphs are the commentary of the
Okay.
symbolism of Karkati by the Swamiji, and so Kumar will continue to read and finish those three paragraphs.
Karkati is Maya, cosmic illusion. In its aspect of avidya, ignorance, and is characterized by its insatiable cravings. Ignorance assumes subtle forms of afflictions and creates diverse disease of the body and mind. It is ignorance that upsets the balance of the mind, which in turn causes agitation in the vital forces, resulting in disbalance of humors of the body. Thus, in course of time, diseases develop. But by turning the mind to the divine self, one can overcome these diseases by the force of divine grace. Righteous conduct, blended with devotion, constitute the antidote to the numerous expressions of ignorance. Driven by the disease of ignorance, one endlessly continues to whirl in the cycle of birth and death. Overcome by ignorance, one is unable to aspire for self realization. His desire becomes petty and degrading. He passes through numerous sufferings pursuing his petty desires, and when he finally attains them, he realizes his folly. He becomes disillusioned and discovers that he has been running after mirages. Hari Om.
Yeah. Want to comment?
This is just a summary. They're talking about what he does, and because of these cosmic illusions, we never realize it, and the ignorance is the one that really takes us there. And once we get the wisdom, get rid of the ignorance, then realize who we are. Because as long as we don't know who we are busy in this world and doing all these kind of things, just looking around, getting entangled. So get out of this entanglement. So you have to get the wisdom to get the jnanam, and once you get the jnanam, then realize who you are. You are divine self. You are nothing but the Brahman. Brahman is the only existence. So he said all these things are gradually go away, because once you do realize it and you realize who you are.
Right. Yeah. So the Jiva is essentially pure, but because of the past vasanas or the past karmas, it in the mind, in that subtle body, when it's born, say with the physical body, it goes through the various adi and vyadis. Adi means mental illnesses, vyadi means the physical illnesses. And all of them are because of our own ignorance, and the ignorance caused vasanas and karmas in the past life. And once we realize that, and then we disidentify with the body, then we realize our real nature, and we go beyond the world process. So, okay, Ratnama, continue with the Kartiki is transformed.
Karkati is transformed into an enlightened spirit. Sri Vashishta continued, O Rama, Karkati began again to practice austerity in order to regain her previous form. Her austerities were severe. She fasted for a long time, feeding only on air. Indra and the other gods tempted her in various ways, but she was invincible. She was drowned in mud and water for a long time. Clouds thundered over her head. Lightning flashed ceaselessly. Snow fell and winds blew. But the needle-shaped Karkati maintained her practice of austerity. She could not be distracted. At last, Brahma again presented himself before Karkati to grant her a boon. But by now, Karkati did not ask for any boon. She thought within herself, I have become full. All my doubts have been rent asunder. What am I going to do with a boon? I am peaceful. I have attained nirvana. I have become liberated. All my desires are fulfilled. Should I continue, Dr. Raghu?
Now we'll stop here.
Okay.
Want to comment?
Yes. Karkati has realized at last, finally, she couldn't get by being a needle. It was not much blood she could suck from the people's in the vitals. So she realized her folly. What she did was, she said, "Okay, I'm going to do more tapas so that I could get what I really want." But in the meantime, what happens was, she was enlightened. How she was enlightened? Look, all these things that I did and I achieved, what did I get in the end? Nothing. That she could not satisfy herself. She couldn't get the more food or the blood and to suck from the vitals of the people. So finally she realized, okay, when Brahma appeared to ask her what she wanted, she realized, I have satisfied. I do not want anything. I have attained nirvana and I have been liberated. All my desires are fulfilled. And she realizes, and then she's happy and peaceful. She was enlightened. And she doesn't want to be asking for anything anymore. Hari Om.
Yeah. So I can say how even a demonic personality, by doing tapas, can get converted into the sattvic or even a realized person. So I'm going to read a few of the about 5 translations of the 5 verses on this particular paragraph from the original. So, see, she, the Karkati, said to herself, I am now a perfect being and am delivered from my doubts. What blessings, therefore, is it that I have need for asking beyond the state of beatitude, which I already possess in my peace and tranquility, and the bliss of contentment and self realization. I have got the knowledge of all that is to be known, and am set free from the web of errors. My rationality is developed, and what more is required to a perfect and rational being? Let me remain seated as I am in my present state. I am in the light of truth and quite removed from the darkness of untruth. What else is there for me to ask and accept? I have passed a long period in my unreasonableness and was carried away like a child by the demon of evil genius of earthly desires. This desire is now brought under subjection by my power of rationalization. And of what avail are all the objects of my desire to my soul? So there is nothing of any good to the soul, for nothing temporal is of any spiritual good. The Lord of creatures kept looking on the demoness, sitting with her mind fixed in her silent meditation and resigned to her destiny and quite abstracted from the external sensations and use of her bodily organs. So Brahma, with the boundless kindness of his heart, again accosted the apathetic dame and said to her, receive your desired blessing and live to enjoy for some time longer on earth. So, just like Dhruva, when he meditated on Lord Vishnu, his desire was to be able to sit on the lap of his father. And but after meditation, and when the Bhagavan came in the front to give this boon, okay, then he realized, hey, what is it that I am asking for? Though even they didn't ask, the intention with which that he started, that he was given that boon, and then because of devotion to Bhagavan, and then he was given the position of the Dhruva Nakshatra. The same way here, that the demoness, though she became realized that the intention for which she did the tapas, that boon has to be given. So that's what we are going to see in the next few paragraphs. And Sarvesh ji is going to finish it up.
Hariom, with seeing, which paragraph? The seeing her quiet, Brahma said.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, thank you. Seeing her quiet, Brahma said, "O daughter, you are enlightened. However, since you initially practiced austerity with the desire of regaining your former body, you will attain it. You will become an enlightened demoness abiding in the Himalayas. You will enjoy the nectar of meditation and samadhi. To sustain your physical body, you will eat only those who are unenlightened. You will destroy those who are sunk in sinful deeds. Therefore, you will be known as Anyaya Vadhika. Anyayavadhika, the remover of injustice. Thus saying, Brahma disappeared. Since then, Karkati enjoyed the bliss of samadhi, and at times she sported in Himalayas, feeding on people who were dominated by sinful karmas.
Yeah. The next two paragraphs are the commentary by the Swamiji. They are in italics. Go ahead, sir. Continue.
This transformed form of Karkati is symbolic of Maya in its aspect of Vidya, knowledge, while ignorance leads one to delusion and bondage. Vidya enables one to overcome delusions and to attain enlightenment. The same divine energy that operated as the force of ignorance is now transformed into sublimating force of knowledge. It does not create cravings for worldly pleasures. It does not lead to humiliating conditions of life. Rather, it enables one to enjoy the bliss of the self and feeds upon the forces of darkness that destroy the path to spiritual enlightenment. That's nice. While avidya creates various afflictions that eat into the vitals of one's being, thereby causing the soul to move from one embodiment to another. Vidya eradicates the impurities of the mind and promotes the attainment of self-realization, and thus puts an end to the cycle of birth and death. It's a beautiful summary of how avidya is causing the soul to move away, and vidya is the one that comes and destroys avidya. The ignorance is destroyed by vidya, right. And which by which Karkati got enlightenment and was in samadhi.
Yeah. So there's a saying in Ayurveda, wherever whatever the disease is, there in that area itself, there's an antidote for those diseases in various plants and all. The same way, here, the Maya dilutes the person, but at the same time, the Vidya Maya releases the person from this bondage. So, Avidya Maya and Vidya Maya. So, if you are in Rajasic and Tamasic, Avidya Maya continues to engulf us. But if you continue from Rajasic to Sattvic and make all our activities Sattvic, then naturally we go towards enlightenment. And so you can see from this, a little take-home message is, all our afflictions, both physical and mental, are because of our own past vasanas and past karmas. And so if a person is completely beyond all that. Of course, even if the body is affected because of the past karmas of that body, BMI, that he does not get affected from anything. And he will even have a power to cure himself because that he has complete control over this BMI. So, okay, anybody want to comment, add? So 5 minutes early, we are going to stop today here. And so what happens to Karkati later on, how there's a conversation that happens between her and the king and a minister is going to be described in the next chapter. Okay. ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ
Hari Om, everybody.
Hari Om, everybody. Hari